to keep things moving, and please just, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll pause. This is obviously very informal, because that's the way we roll. You know, that's how we're going to build connections. Just like you were talking about, Tina. It sounds like Susan, from what I know of Susan, it's all about building connections.
Yes.
And making sure that each of these events and conversations, that you go away with something, and maybe a new connection or a new idea or thought or question, whatever it may be. So I'm going to share my screen now. Get me set here. And let's see. So, because everybody, so what's on the screen right now? Do I have to move all of you out of the way? Is this okay for everybody? Okay, so what it is on the screen, Chris Smith is my colleague and co-founder of DisArt, and unfortunately he's having a disability day, which some know more than others, that his body's not doing what he wants it to do today. So he sends his regrets, but know that whenever Oakley and I speak about this project and anything, for me related to DisArt, that he's right here next to me, and we worked very closely on everything we do. And we're the official team of DisArt. But we have an amazing board of directors with especially with the addition of Mary, who's on this call. And we have people like Oakley, who we just bring people in like magnets a little bit. Sorry if like that's just how it happens. And we've gotten connected to Susan and really appreciate being invited to be part of this, to let you know what we're up to. So Oakley, I think you already, you gave your introduction, but maybe it was before everybody else came.
Yeah, I can go again. I am Oakley Thiele. I am an artist, service dog handler, and disability rights advocate. I've been partnered with DisArt. I did a little bit of projects with them. I was a few months prior, and I played a small part in that, but this huge project that I'm now a part of, that I'm collaborating with him on, I've been doing since March 2020, and that is the Dearest Friends project. And it's grown to become on a global scale, which is really incredible. And so that's what I guess Jill and I are going to talk about now today. That was not as good as my first introduction.
No, that's great.
Of course, no.
So what we have next is a video that we created. It's about a 6-minute video. It has audio descriptions with it. You'll hear that as well. And I'm hoping through Zoom that you can all access the sound. If not, or even if we can send you the link as well to watch afterwards. Oh, that's not what.
In March 2020, DisArt and artist Oakley Thiele began the My Dearest Friends project by collecting stories from the disabled community confronted with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Through podcast interviews and personal submissions illustrated by Thiele, the project unites the global disabled community while documenting this moment in history and preserving our culture. The screen remains black as the first voice begins.
My dearest friends, what do you see when you see me? Someone who is weak, vulnerable. I am one of many with a powerful voice. Can you hear us screaming that we deserve equality? Will you listen to those screams, or will you let them continue to go unheard?
Fade in on a pair of hands. Many black and white charcoal drawings on white paper spread on a glass desk. The left hand picks up black.
I'm going to actually pause, and I'm going to tell you why. Because that version does not have audio, does not have the captions for some reason.
Text on a black screen. In March.
Sorry about that, everybody. And that doesn't do us any good, does it? Technical. Let me see if I can just find it. Yeah. It's very odd.
Oh, Zoom brings out the best in us.
Oh, no, and we had that. Yeah, we know how important. And if we can't find it, I think we'll just talk you through it because.
On my YouTube channel, I have the captioning.
Oh, perfect.
Do you want to share it or do you want me to share it, Jill?
Oh, can you send me your YouTube channel? So the voice that you heard in that video actually is Mary, that first voice, talking about my dearest friends. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Okay, we'll blow this up. Oh, there's lots of things to navigate with. Okay.
Someone was weak, vulnerable.
Nope, don't stop playing.
I'm one of many.
Everything wants to go at once. Okay. Blow this up.
And now you just pick the part of the screen that you want to show.
All right. Ready? I think we're ready. Maybe.
I think you have to click on it like you would if you're going to start it.
Yeah.
It's starting, but you don't have the image, just the audio descriptions.
Oh, okay. Well, now we're missing audio description.
Yeah, you just need to read that part.
Okay, I get it. Through podcast interviews and personal submissions illustrated by Feely, the project unites the global disabled community while documenting this moment in history and preserving our culture.
My dearest friends, what do you see when you see me? Someone who is weak, vulnerable. I am one of many with a powerful voice. Can you hear us screaming that we deserve equality? Will you listen to those screams, or will you let them continue to go unheard?
I'm Oakley Feely, and I'm the artist who has partnered with DisArt to create the My Dearest Friends project.
So I, like everyone else, had been reading so many different news stories and articles about the pandemic, about specifically how, the disabled community was at the highest risk. I kept witnessing, disabled lives, kind of being tossed aside. And I had written that letter in response to all those articles, and it was just kind of my way of addressing, my disabled community. And kind of begging them to, remember this pandemic.
Tired of our lives being considered as expendable.
We're groundbreakers, right? Because I really think that this is going to change, like working remotely is going to change the way everybody does work, right? And I think maybe I'm hoping that it will further naturalize or regularize disabled people working in different ways, right? We've had to be creative out of necessity, right? And it's just the larger population has that same necessity thrust upon it now. So it's taking on a whole new significance because the larger population is dealing with it now.
My dearest friends, I'm not sorry that I'm disabled, and I don't want anyone else to feel sorry for me either. If there's anything you should be sorry about, it's systemic discrimination of people with disability. And if you're truly sorry about that, you'll start taking actions to dismantle ableism. I don't need your pity. I need you to learn, embrace, and become more inclusive of me and all other people with disability.
My dearest friends, may we be flanked by the protection of each other's care. May we rest. May we hold space for each other in the stillness. May our voices find audience, and may others begin to listen. May we scream until the world comes to equally value our lives, full of sage experience and pre-existing conditions.
But I do want people to open their eyes and realize that what they're experiencing right now is something that is temporary for them. And it has been rather permanent for many of us. And I hope that they understand it better and they'll do something.
Oakley, I want to just let you know that we've had Gordon join us who's blind.
Perspective on a small portion of our struggles. We must make sure that this moment goes down in history so that we can build a better world, a more accessible world, a world for everyone, a world for us.
So on the screen now, it says credits in order: Mary Fashik, Oakley Thiele, Nancy Hansen, I don't know, and oakleytheory.com, disartnow.org. Special thanks to Ford Foundation, Cheryl Green, Kendra Larson. Song licensing at the end. Okay. Oakley, would you like to take it from there and talk about like how this started?
Yeah.
I mean, we heard it in the video, but as people are joining us, I think it doesn't hurt to reiterate it in our own words and where it's gone.
Yeah. So back in March of 2020, I was approached by DisArt, and we wanted to make some sort of art collaboration in regards to COVID. We weren't really sure what we wanted it to look like, but we knew that we were both really upset about the way that the media was portraying us, and the fact that they were writing stories about us without addressing us, without talking to us, and also the fact that they, a lot of the stories that were circulating around at the time and still now was that, you know, it's okay, nobody worry, it's just COVID and only the disabled and chronically ill will die. So that was really upsetting for me to hear and for me to read. Right now on the screen, there is a white piece of paper with hand-lettered charcoal. And it's a poem that I ended up writing in regards to DisArt. And this is just during our brainstorming session, but it ended up being really the foundation of this project. And so while I was in my studio sort of reflecting upon the treatment of our disabled community at that time, I ended up writing this poem, and it's titled My Dearest Friends. We mustn't let this be forgotten, the time the world gained perspective on a small portion of our struggles. We must make sure that this moment goes down in history so that we can build a better world, a more accessible world, a world for everyone, a world for us. Sorry? Oh, sorry. I thought someone said something. And so I had written that it was my way of addressing my disabled community in an open letter. And I wanted to promise my community that at the end of all of this, I would work to build a more accessible world. And we ended up taking this poem and using it as the foundation to build this project. And so we posted this poem online, and we asked for people to send in their responses. And so we asked for everyone to start off with My Dearest Friends and write about 280 characters, and just tell us whatever they were feeling at that time, whether it be about disability or their feelings towards COVID, because we're all experiencing a collective trauma, and this is something that none of us have, witnessed before, and so we're all trying to process this as a community together. Let's see, we've received submissions from all over the world. Where we've received submissions from, Jill, I'm like blanking on that. But we've got
you have connections to people in Central or South America, and people from parts of Europe and all over the country. People of all ages, from children to, I don't think there has been an end of the age, but it's been interesting. So this image on the screen now is one of the first illustrations that Oakley created, and it's of canaries. So there's a main, and all of these drawings, we should say, are on a white background with black charcoal. And there's sketches and mostly outlines. In some cases there's filled in, but it's mostly the outline. And this is an image of a canary, where I think of it as one main canary with either showing the action of of the head moving of that same canary, or another canary behind it. I'm not sure, Oakley, you can talk about what it specifically is, but that's how I see it, as either one or two canaries. But there's a submission that goes along with this. Do you have that to read?
I do have that submission. Hold on.
So the idea of a canary in the coal mine is something that also was at the start of this project. And Chris, my colleague, who wasn't able to join us today, was really focused on the feeling that he was getting from what he was reading in the news about people who have underlying conditions, disabled or elderly, are going to be the first to be affected by coronavirus or COVID-19. So we're safe. The non-disabled or youth are safe. And the reference to the canary is that a canary in a coal mine will be taken in a coal mine, and if there's threat or danger, or someone knows maybe better than I do, that the canary would die first, and it would allow and alert people to escape the coal mines. So this is an initial submission around that.
Yeah, so this is one of our first submissions, as Jill just said, and I'll read it here. Chris sent this in to the Dearest Friends Project and wrote, "My dearest friends, like the canary in the coal mine, I'm asked to prophesize that which awaits us all. But what if instead my choice is to not play the role that this cage assumes, but to instead sing a song of history, of marginalized melodies and self-actualization, and of support? That will be a better role for all of us to live with, nothing short of community, Chris."
So each one starts with "my dearest friends" and ends with someone's first name, or some are anonymous. Some people have sent in single submissions, some have sent in multiple submissions. both at one time or have decided as the pandemic has persisted that the response and the experiences that people are having are shifting as well. Let me get to the next. So this is another example. All of these examples you can find on Instagram at My Dearest Friends Project, and Facebook, which is also of My Dearest Friends Project. And so this one is just, these are a few samplings of it. It says, it's white background with the charcoal black, and it's only writing, no imagery with this one. My dearest friends, if the instability of these times threatens your stability, take heart, Mark. So this is really one of the early, was this an early one, Oakley?
Yeah, this was an early one, yeah. And what's nice is that, you know, some of them are like really short and sweet like that, and then some of them it can get quite longer, and they'll go into, you know, the families that have died from COVID, the friends that they know, and then they'll talk about their fears and anxieties. But then sometimes we get these short little sweet encouragements from people just addressing our disabled community, and telling us, like Mark, to, you know, not to give up hope and whatnot. So they really vary, and that really depends on the person. And yeah, I don't know if you had much else on that. This one is from Adriana, and I'll read her full one right here. It says, my dearest friend.
So can I describe it first?
Yes, please do that.
Okay, so on a white background, again, there's the black charcoal drawing. This time there are 3 sections of writing, disrupted, or between the writing there are images. So the first writing, and then a row of images, which is a row of houses. And then there's another short writing, and then there's an image of like a grocery bag, a computer, laptop, and a plated meal. And then there's another section of short writing. These are all questions that Oakley will be reading within the body of the full letter. And then at the bottom, the final images are of a mask, a coronavirus, the circle with the coronavirus, well, I don't know how to describe, the cell, and then a syringe. And so what Oakley has often done is we will get a full submission, and then she'll take parts of it and combine the writing with the illustration. And this is a case where she's done that.
So the full submission, it reads, my dearest friends, because of the COVID-19, the entire world is at home. Our society has had to make countless of adjustments to make this happen. What are the thousands of people who are already at home due to chronic illness or disability? Why didn't these accommodations already exist for them? Did a pandemic really have to occur for our world to become a bit more accessible? Adriana.
And what's interesting for us, there's a second component to this My Dearest Friends project that Chris and I work on, is we have a podcast that we call Dystopia. And so we have been interviewing disabled artists, activists, academics, individuals in the community, so that while the work that Oakley's doing is very communal and more anonymous, we have interviewed specific people along the way to get a personal perspective. And so actually Mary, who's on the call here, and Susan, we've interviewed both of them to go along with the submissions and to help us track people's experiences and what they're working on and what their fears are, what their hopes are along the whole way. And so all of those podcasts, which we have many more to come that are backlogged in the editing process, can be found at disartnow.org, and we have podcasts there. And what we have heard again and again is that disabled people have been asking for accommodations, have been asking to work at home, has been asking for different things. And this is really a clear statement to, did a pandemic really have to occur for our world to be a bit more accessible? And so there's a bit of, there's anger associated with that. And a lot of the conversations we're having is, well, what is it going to take to make sure that the accommodations that have been allowed and considered during this time, how do they continue for people who need them? So this is another image, illustration. It's white background with a stethoscope sketched in black charcoal.
This image correlates with Lucy's submission. And Lucy wrote to us, she said, "My dearest friends, I'm terrified that I've lost access to assets of my medical care, that my community is suffering around me, that I'm once again homebound, reminding me of a darker time that I thought I'd left behind, that the national response to this emergency demonstrates a continued devaluation of the disabled lives, an undercurrent now risen to the surface in horrifying ways. I'm angry that people aren't taking isolation seriously and putting lives at risk as a result, that institutions continue to ignore disabled voices, that once abled people assert expectation of the resources we've begged for, they're listened to, that the disabled community has so much wisdom to offer, but we will not be heard. But I'm also glad that disabled people are meeting this challenge with grace and empathy, that we've come together in unprecedented ways to be there for one another, that a new precedent has been set for what institutions are capable of achieving, that hopefully we come out of this with a greater empathy for one another and respect for the other people for whom this isolation and fear is the norm." Lucy.
So I think we just have a couple more, and we really want to get to any conversation. So just keep going through these if that's okay with everybody. And then if you have questions or comments or anything, I believe Susan is monitoring the chat, and then will help us go through those when we're finished. So this is a illustration, white background, black charcoal. There's writing at the top and the bottom. The top, it says, "When you've been home for so long, you actually have dreams." And at the bottom of the page, it's about going out, hugging friends, and going out to eat. And then between the writing in the center is what looks like a female in a wheelchair leaning over and embracing in a hug and a kiss with a male person who's leaning over in a caress of her face. Very loving interaction between the two.
And the full submission, it's pretty much on there, but this one was sent in by Mary. It says, "My dearest friends, when you've been home for so long, you actually have dreams about going out, hugging friends, and going out to eat. Still not doing any of those things, though. Too many thoughtless people not wearing masks to protect those like me, Mary." Mm-hmm. We have one last one. This is our last one here, Jill.
Yep. And this is an image of what I would believe is a gentleman in a wheelchair, mostly because the person who submitted it, his name is Jason, and he's actually someone who we interviewed for a podcast as well. And so he has one hand on the wheel of the wheelchair and the other rested in his lap.
It says, the full submission for Jason says, "My dearest friends, I'm not sorry that I'm disabled, and I don't want anyone else to feel sorry for me either. If there's anything you should be sorry about, it's systematic discrimination of people with disability. And if you're truly sorry about that, you'll start taking action to dismantle ableism. I don't need your pity. I need you to learn, embrace, and become more inclusive of me and all other people with disabilities. Jason."
So let's see if I can stop sharing. So that hopefully gives you a sense of the project that we've been working on, and it's been growing. And like Oakley had said, it began at the end of March and is continuing. We anticipate continuing through a vaccination. So we'll be figuring out how to, fund this, but the stories, the historical documentation of a community that is so often left behind, we feel that it is essential at this time, and how the art that Oakley is doing, we consider it a bit of a call and response. So we will have people who, I mean, Oakley, you can talk a little bit, just briefly, about what people's reactions have been.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people message me through the Dearest Friends Instagram account, because I run that as part of the project. And I'll just have these like late night talks with these disabled people from all across the world that I've never met before. But the universal message that I receive really is that people find a lot of comfort in this project, knowing that, you know, these fears and anxieties and anger, it's all shared amongst our community. We're all experiencing, like I said, this collective trauma. And so this feeling of fear, you're not alone in it. I think a lot of us assume that we are, until we start talking to each other and looking at platforms like the Dearest Friends Project, and whatnot. And yeah, I think there's that. I think there's been comfort that I've heard, but then I've also heard people are angry. We're really angry because we've never had these accommodations, and then within, you know, less than a month, once the able-bodied people need them, they're automatically there right away, easy access. And I've had people message me very recently saying that the accommodations that have come through COVID are now being taken away already. So that's upsetting to hear, and we're trying to fight that and trying to, you know, maintain the access that we ended up getting from this pandemic. But I don't know what else to say on this, Jill.
No, I think that's great. I think if what questions or comments do any of you have? You can either you know, unmute yourself and let us know, or add something to the chat and we'll just respond.
Well, we have had one request to put the the website address in the chat.
Oh, perfect. I'll do that now. Let's see. I think, so for the Instagram, that's where you can, like the website, I'll just put everything. How about that?
If you're wanting to send in a submission, sending in a submission, can you write this out, Jill? If you want to send in a submission, you would email hello@disartnow.org.
Mm-hmm.
And you can send as many as you want. Should we tell them about the next step? We haven't really formally announced it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is brand new. We haven't told anyone, but now I'm nervous. I'm in a rocking chair. Wow, that was embarrassing. Okay.
We're among friends. It's okay.
So I'm sure that you've all heard about the issues and concerns happening with the U.S. Postal Service, and we're trying to utilize that service as much as possible now. One of the things that we're now going to open up, DisArt is obtaining a P.O. box, and we're going to start asking people to mail in submissions as well. So you can actually send us a physical letter, and I will send you a small art piece in return, a handwritten letter back, and so you'll get an actual physical response from us as well. But any letters that you send to us, we keep those, and those will end up being part of our exhibition. DisArt and I are hoping to plan an exhibition that will hopefully travel across the US and be able to provide this project to even more people. So those letters would end up traveling along with us, and also end up in the catalog and whatnot. So that's another way that you can send things in as soon as Jill gets the P.O. box ready for us. But yeah.
As long as we still have P.O. boxes.
Yeah. Yeah,
we'll figure out a location where letters can be sent.
So we haven't got any questions in chat. Oh,
Elaine has her.
It says come to Oregon.
Yeah. Oh, why are the PO boxes going away?
Well, because the post office is being defunded or less funds. So our postal service is at risk of going, not literally being usable anymore.
So Elaine had her hand raised.
Yeah.
Speak, Elaine.
Yeah, oops, I can unmute you there.
Okay, yeah. Just, of course, at that moment, I had one of those yucky calls, so I turned it off. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but as a creative person, I have had a surge of creativity along with the virus. And around here, Connecticut, West Haven, Connecticut, things shut down pretty much around March 13th. And right about then, I started getting these messages. I get inspirational messages that come to me and phrases when I'm rolling over in bed, or and I get up and write about them and whatever, different things happen. So this came out and it's called March 13th, Pandemics Happen. Plague and pandemic, flood and drought, blizzard and hurricane tend to even out. No way to control. There are things we can do. Please try to help me, and I'll try to help you. And since then, I've had more poetry. I've had several songs. I mean, so I would like to send and contribute my Pandemics Happen set of things to contribute as part of this effort, because we really are in this together, which is the title to one of my songs.
Yes, we are, and we appreciate that, Elaine, that you would be willing to send it. And you can send it in any way, which is something we didn't talk about. It can be in written form. We've also had submissions as videos or audio. So whatever form is most accessible for people. So thank you for being willing to share.
Well, this is the thing, you see. I'm almost 71. And to be honest, I'm more comfortable with the way things were done a very long time ago, like reel-to-reel tape recorders and actual turntables. I was good at that back when. Not so good at this new stuff. And so I like to say that I've decided to stick my big toe into the 21st century. I don't want to go too far, but my big toe I can do. And with the pandemic, I had to get a webcam. Didn't have one. So I got the webcam in April. So that's why I'm able to appear and participate. So I'm another example.
Concerts.
Say what?
And have concerts.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, always look for the positive. Always look for the blessings. Even in horrible situations, there are positive aspects and blessings mixed in with all the awful stuff.
Thank you for sharing. And Elaine, you may want to be one of the earliest letter writers for us.
Jess wants to say something. Hi, Jess.
Hi. I finally got on. Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I came late, but I really am inspired by the work you've done from what I've seen. And I also wanted to ask you, why is the social media you said something like a few minutes ago about it going away? What do you mean by that? Like, not the Postal Service. You said that the Zooms are slowly going away. Other people are complaining with disabilities.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you for asking the question for clarification. If I am understanding this right, you're wondering, why do we say that Zoom and other access measures that have been put in place are disappearing for people?
Well, I wasn't asking about the Postal Service. I was asking about...
Yeah. So what people have been experiencing is, as the pandemic built up and people were working from home and they had different accommodations and access, things that were implemented, including Zoom, made it easier for some people to work from home or to do what they needed to get their paid work done. So, but as places open up and cities and states decide that people need to go back in the physical spaces, those accommodations and those access needs are also disappearing, rather than staying in place and giving people that choice.
But I don't get it, because we're on Zoom right now. Zoom is not going away.
Right. No, Zoom itself is not going away, but some companies are saying, as employees, we let you work from home and you would use Zoom for that, but now we're not going to work from home anymore. And so you have to come physically to be in the building to work.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Mm-hmm. And so we want to fight for continued choice and flexibility. And we've had interviews. I can think of one interview, one of our podcast interviews, where Patricia Caladonis, who actually, she's doing a socially distant art residency, which Oakley is part of, and a number of other artists. And we interviewed her, and she talks in the interview about how much better she feels since she's been able to work from home, and how much more productive she is, and how she would never have been able to start a new artist collective or project if she had still been working and going to work every day in person. And so those are the stories that we want to keep telling.
Wow,
lives are better off when they can choose where they work.
Yeah,
I have a wonderful announcement. The closed captioning suddenly kicked in.
It is, and Patricia,
and it's all, almost 3 o'clock.
Yeah, and Patricia, you've been helping so much with the captioning. So
yes, she's fantastic.
Yes, you've been wonderful. So other things, we have just a couple more minutes officially, but Susan says sometimes things run on a little bit later as people want to stay. What else have you been thinking about and wondering about for yourselves as part of this pandemic?
I know for me, I'm finding
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's difficult on here. I was just commenting. I'm not sure if it's a question or so much as it is a comment. My name is Marika Davis, by the way. I live in Arizona. I've just been noticing that with the removal of the post office boxes and the talk of how insecure our voting system is, I've noticed an uptick or a rise, or I just noticed more people and how ableist some people are. I remember very distinctly reading a comment of this guy who was saying, how do blind people vote? This must be illegal. I mean, somebody must be helping them. And I was taken aback so much, because I'm like, we blind people have been voting for decades. So yeah, it's just something that,
Yeah, it makes you can tell you're like angry when you hear these. And so what is our role? I mean, that's part of this project is, and a part of the work of DisArt and lots of different artists and activists is to call out ableism when we see it, both by and people who are disabled and non-disabled. Like, make sure that people know what the word ableism means, because it's not necessarily part of common language.
Yeah, and I try to do that through my comic strips, but I'm fairly slow. But I think that art is really important, and why this is important too, because art speaks a language that I think everyone can understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you talk about being slow, we would say you don't need to justify your pace, right? It is your pace, and we're in this together. And that's where this work is so important to us, because it's a collective. DisArt and Oakley and other people we work with, we see ourselves as here to build each other up and connect, so that that momentum carries us, not just one person or one group of people doing the work. But we have Crip Camp and Upgrade Accessibility and Elaine and all her, she's ready to get arrested again. And, but we're all working together, and your art and our art. And we're just glad that we can begin to connect and know of each other.
Can I just chime in for a second about the voting? It's very important to make non-disabled people aware that with the removal of mailboxes and with what's going on with the post office, that the disabled community and chronically ill community, we are being suppressed. Our votes are being suppressed. We are one of the largest marginalized groups in the entire world, and our votes are being suppressed. Our votes count. Our votes matter. Our votes decide whether someone stays in power or gets voted out. And the government right now does not want us to vote because they are systematically hurting us and working against us. So what are they doing? Trying to silence our voices and keep us from voting and keep our votes from counting. So it's very, very important, as part as what you were saying about ableism. It's very important to make the non-disabled community highly aware of the fact that we are being suppressed, but not only the disabled community, the BIPOC disabled community, which I am a member of. I am a disabled woman of color. My vote, I live in Georgia. They're trying to suppress my vote. I will not let that happen. I will not let my community be suppressed. So awareness and activism is key.
Well, one of the things that I've recently experienced is sort of gratifying is that there's this app online called Neighbors, and I've been using it off and on for a year or two. But recently, what they've started is a specific area where people can offer help because of COVID. And initially, there seemed to have been little understanding of what folks with disabilities might need. But there's been a growing awareness in terms of what people are volunteering to help people for. They're offering to help people do grocery shopping, walk dogs, a variety of things that are things that folks with disabilities specifically will have difficulty with. But after the last vote, there's now a whole bunch of people that have added in that they'll take people's absentee ballots in for them, because they know now that mailing them in is risky business. So now people want to drop them off. But if you're disabled, that's not necessarily as simple as it is for someone else. So,
well, that's really good to know that people are identifying that opportunity and need. And how can we all imagine, or how can we help each other in building up and encouraging the vote, people to vote and figure out how to get it there. Thank you for sharing.
I actually strongly recommend, if any of you aren't using it, is look it up. It's called the Next Door Neighbors app, and it's you can either subscribe to it just based on your very small geographical area, like a couple of blocks, or you can do a wider area that's like a mile or so, and connect with neighbors. And they do all sorts of, I have asked people to pick up medicines for me. I've had like a half a dozen people within seconds say, yeah, they'll pick it up for me, or I need groceries and they'll pick up groceries for me. And there's no payment, nobody's, asking to be paid. It's all just folks reaching out and helping each other. So I found it really, really helpful.
Yeah, and we're in Grand Rapids in the other part of the state of Michigan, and I've seen the same thing. Overwhelming number of people when someone says from time to time, could you help me pick something up or help me with that or whatever, and the responses, like you're saying, within seconds of people commenting. And you can use it for other things too, about recommendations for doctors or things that you're questioning. If you have children, you can use it to connect with other people who are questioning school things. I mean, like it is another community out there that is worth knowing about.
Called the neighborhood?
Yeah, Next Door Neighbor. I can get the link while we're, just so you can, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh yeah, and I have one more question if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
I was also, because I use the touch screen for my ability to vote, and because of my vision issues, I was never really comfortable with the in-home ballot. So, but now, at least in Michigan, there is a company, I think he was talking about it like maybe last week or even the week before, it was early on. And I ended up having to leave the thing because I'm not from Michigan. I'm from Chicago, a suburb in Chicago. But I've never heard of that before. And as the election gets closer, I'm really worried that I'll have to ask my assistants for help with the voting. And I really, really don't want to do that. But I really, really want to vote. And I don't think it's fair to have to choose one or the other. So, and the little bubbles on there are extremely hard for me to do fine motor-wise and vision-wise. I can't see them well. So I like the pen on the screen. So, and I taught myself how to do it fairly recently because I was having trouble in my early years of voting. So I'm just very concerned that my voice will not be heard because of other ableism things that are happening, and I'm just disgusted by it. Does anyone have any insight when it comes to that? I mean, I know it's different per state, but I don't think Illinois has that kind of capability that Michigan so lovely has, and I love that idea. I just don't know how people who are not living in Michigan, how they're going to vote.
There are some issues that have been raised about voting the last couple of days, where the mutual aid hubs, people are volunteering to collect people's ballots and deliver them to the Secretary of State office. And people are being warned, do not do this without checking the local state laws, because in many states it is illegal. The person who takes the ballot to drop it off at the Secretary of State office in some states has to be the person who filled it in. Some states allow a close relative who lives with them. Most states do not allow volunteers. So people are offering to help, people want to help, people need help, but the help is often illegal. So be very, very careful.
Thank you, Patricia. I was not aware of that myself. I'm also wondering, maybe you are aware of if people do, or when people do absentee ballot votes, voting, is there an issue with your signature if it doesn't match something? Someone I was talking to said, well, if your signature doesn't match something that people have on file, which we have no idea what signature is, and as we age, or as things happen in our life, our signatures change. Mary, you're shaking your head. Are you aware of this?
Yes, that's true. If your signature does not match what you signed when you register to vote, they can refuse your ballot.
But no, that's actually not quite true. They can challenge it. They can't refuse it. They can challenge it.
They can
and they
challenge
they may be able to challenge it successfully. But if you can provide another piece of data that's got the same signature on it, they just need to verify that it's your signature. So if you have another, like if it was your ID doesn't match what's on your driver's license, if you can find something else where you signed something at a similar time period where it probably matched, then it would work. So yeah, that's an issue. But so in Michigan, you can actually do it. There's on the envelope, as there are other states that do this, but in Michigan it says, did someone else help you fill out this ballot? And then they have to sign the back of the ballot and have their name, I think their name and their address, I think maybe their phone number and a signature.
It's
and
the same way in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yep, same way in
so that
Georgia.
person can assist them and submit the ballot.
But who signs their name the exact same way twice?
Yeah.
But I've been told by my parents that it's okay to let people vote, and I'm like, to let people help me vote. I'm like, they're like, what would you rather do? Get a chance to vote or worry about formality? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I want both. And I'm just like, and they think I'm being too outrageous and asking, I don't know, it just, ugh. The whole thing is, ugh.
Well, here's another option for you, Jess. What if you got somebody to volunteer to help you vote that wasn't somebody who was providing services or a relative? If it was just a stranger, would you trust them more to fill it out and not be impacted? You know, would they fill it out that way because that's what they were there to do?
Yes, but how do I get those people?
Talk to the local Center for Independent Living. Explain the problem to them. Ask them what are the local laws where you live, because Illinois' laws are different from Michigan's laws. And both of them have requirements that mean certain people are not allowed to help you legally. That if some people help you with the voting, your vote will be thrown out. So you are only allowed by law in Illinois for certain people to help you. So talk to the Center for Independent Living, and they should know what the laws are where you live.
Okay.
Unknown caller.
Does anyone have other questions? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if this would be helpful, but I'm pretty sure you can also request a Braille ballot or a large print ballot. But I think that, I'm not sure if that differs by state or if that would be
only
helpful.
Some states. I wish it was all. Michigan just started doing that.
Okay,
thank you. Yeah, that actually would be a great art project. I mean, just the whole concept of voting and the struggle and the anger when your vote doesn't. I mean, it's a huge issue that folks with disabilities face.
Yeah, so bringing it back to this project, that is where we would encourage you to say, my dearest friends, I am so angry with the system, or whatever it may be that you want to say, because this, from our perspective, is how we are collecting your stories. And when we collect them you know, collectively, or we start to talk about it and we get it written, it becomes part of our history, and it becomes part of the work that we all are going to move forward and continue to fight for.
What is the difference between my dearest friend and the other organization that you guys talked about? It's called D something.
Oh, DisArt.
What's the difference?
Okay, so DisArt, I am a co-founder, co-director of DisArt, which is a nonprofit organization. And we partnered with artist Oakley Thiele, who's part of this presentation, to put together the My Dearest Friends project.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a collaboration?
Yes, it's a collaboration, exactly. And Tina, you're from the UK, is that what you said? London? I would encourage you to listen to Julie McNamara's podcast.
Okay, I'll have a listen to that, yes.
Yeah, she is, so I'm not sure if everybody's aware of the challenges and the differences between countries and locations, but I'm interested, if you're willing, Tina, for you to share some of the struggles that are happening, because Julie McNamara, who is an artist and a friend of ours, is devastated by what's happening in nursing homes, just like in the US, in nursing homes and other places. And weekly, she seems to be attending a funeral.
I think things started to go wrong in the UK a few years ago when we had the vote for Britax. And from that, really the division of our society became very apparent. The hatred against minority groups increased. And then the same year you had your elections, and it felt like the whole world was just going backwards. So it's been an issue that we've had for a long time. In terms of things going wrong in terms of COVID-19, I could spend hours talking about it, but I'll try and sort of summarize it very quickly. So one of the problems is that our lockdown started too late. We have a Tory conservative government, so a right-wing government, right-of-centre government. And I think the issue of the economy versus the issue of people's well-being was very much the juggling thing that was going on. The couple of weeks before we had lockdown, which started to like the middle of March, we had quite a few big events, sporting events that went on. So we had a big racing event, which happened annually. There was also sporting events between Liverpool and overseas teams. So, and it just seemed to be like no one was taking it seriously. Where I worked, we actually went into lockdown the week before. They made a decision that the staff were going to be working from home, and we went off with our laptops. And I'm very grateful because I'm very lucky that I've got a job I can work from home. But basically, it was announced on the Monday evening at 5 o'clock that lockdown was happening that day for everyone. And I think because of the build-up to it, people weren't taking it very seriously. It was interesting what you were saying before about how the media was responding. So we have basically been called vulnerable. That's the label we've got, and as disabled people, we've really fought against that. But also there's been a bit of internal dilemma as well, because some people do feel physically vulnerable. But we feel like we've been made vulnerable by our government. So there's been things like the whole thing with the nursing homes. There was a whole thing about there wasn't the protection, the PPE, which we call the personal protection equipment. You know, the masks, the visors, the equipment you'd have in the hospital. That was meant to be getting rolled out to the care homes. There was meant to be guidance very early on, there was guidance that people who had relatives there shouldn't go and visit. So that's been particularly problematic for a lot of people. They haven't been able to see their loved ones haven't been able to see that. So it's had an impact on people in the care homes. And then somewhere along the line, it started leaking out the statistics, because before the statistics were all together. So we started off originally looking particularly at Italy and saying poor Italy, poor France, poor Spain. We've actually got the worst record in the UK, and they've fiddled the figures a couple of weeks ago. So they've actually lowered the numbers that we've had. And I know it's nothing in comparison to the numbers of deaths that you've had. And it's not a numbers game, because each life that's gone is traumatic for that individual, for that family, for that community. But the things about the care homes just didn't come in quick enough. And then I think it's something like about a third of people in care homes have died during this period. And it's not quite clear, depending on how you do the figures, whether everyone had COVID or whether people have had other underlying conditions. And it's just they've taken it from, you know, if there's so many, however many people meant to die on a general period of, you know, particular time of the year, how many excess deaths there are. I'm not quite sure how they've done it, because I'm not a scientist or whatever with it. So there's been concerns about that. We've had a list that came out, which was about, we've got about 14 million disabled people in the UK. So it's 1 in 5 of the population. So I assume similar to figures you've got in the States. So 2 million of those were identified as being extremely vulnerable. Sorry, I've got a siren going past me. 2 million people were seen as being extremely vulnerable, and they were told to shield. There are a lot of disabled people like myself who felt very vulnerable, who decided to voluntarily shield. We were told to stay in the house and not go out at all. There were people who weren't getting food parcels. There weren't people who weren't getting their medication delivered. People were not being able to go out at all to exercise. That was what the advice was. It's been affecting people's mental health. A lot of the people are older people. So there may be people who aren't using the internet, are not per se with technology. So they're feeling extremely isolated at this time. We've had daily briefings, which, to be honest, have been a joke. Apparently, we're now, our government are now deciding they want presidential daily briefings to come along. Sorry, I won't go off on that track. But basically, for the entire time when we had the daily briefings, disabled peoples were not being mentioned. We've got a Minister of Disability who I didn't see appear for any of it. And basically our voice was totally absent. In terms of the general media, we're seen as vulnerable, very much what you've said. It's people, the elderly and those with underlying health conditions is the phase. They're the people who are going to get it, and the rest of us will be okay. That's been the thing with it. Probably about maybe 2 months ago, maybe a bit longer, we had the whole thing with Dominic Cummings. So one of the very senior advisors to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, decided to go all the way to Bernard Castle with his family, and that really sort of, when that happened, that really sort of broke things for people, because he's basically been let off the hook and seen like it was exceptional circumstances that he decided to travel 300 miles. And I know that's probably not a distance for you, that is a long distance for us in the UK. Geographically, because we're a small island. So he went against the government regulations, and then since then, things basically started to deteriorate. So people who had been generally, it seemed like people had generally applied to lockdown. People were going out and being cautious about social distancing, and all of a sudden that hasn't happened. We've had this ad hoc, things change almost like, something will come up as a topic and things will change. The thing we've got at the moment is that people have had their exam results the last couple of weeks. And they've used an algorithm in the UK to basically determine who will get what qualifications. The algorithm is obviously bent on people who, who go to the private schools, who've got the right postcode or whatever. So there's been lots of unrest on lots of different levels with it. And I think, there's the Black Lives Matter movement has been very strong here. And I feel quite rightly so, and I'm really proud that that's actually been an issue. But I think with all this other stuff that's going on, it's totally taking away from what's going on with the disabled community. So as we're coming out of lockdown, what we're facing at the moment is the new normal. I don't know what it's like for yourselves, but our new normal is they're very much promoting cycle lanes. They are narrowing streets, they're blocking off some roads. And basically, it's going to be difficult for people who either rely on public transport or who rely on cars or taxis or mobility vehicles to actually get around easily with it. They've brought in e-scooters. They just get parked and dumped anywhere. There's a lot of al fresco dining. They're meant to be widening the pavements. They've basically taken part of the road for some of it. So they've not bothered to put in proper ramps, so there's not level access to it. So there's a lot of issues at the moment that our community is really hurting with. And it's apparently 2/3 of the people who have died in the UK are disabled people from COVID. And that has not got a single mention on the mainstream media. So sorry, I've sounded a real jumble about it. There's so many things that come into my mind and make me really angry. But what I've heard from what you guys have been saying today, it feels very much like we have a very shared agenda in terms of the things that are impacting on us, and that we have the same goal of wanting to make the world better, not just for ourselves, but more equality, a more equal society for all. So that really heartens me with it. But I feel very frustrated that it seems like that we've actually gone backwards. That's how it feels at the moment. We're losing some of the rights that we had before we went into lockdown, and I'm not sure how we reclaim them when there are so many other things. I mean, as a world, we are grieving for what's happened with this. We've had the loss of liberty, whether you've got a disability or not. People have lost family, they've lost friends, people have lost jobs. There's been such an impact with it. It's just very difficult for everyone. And I think what's happening now is the lessons people learned at the beginning, where they loved the nature, they loved the silence, they had time to reflect. They've just gone out now, and they're just wanting things to be back to normal. And then there's the people who are feeling cautious because they've got ongoing health issues or they've got a disability, who want to take it a little bit slower. That's quite difficult. We had furloughing, so people were getting 80% of companies were getting 80% of the wages paid for them up until the 1st of August. That's been reduced now and will be discontinued. So there's a whole thing lit virtually overnight because it's costing the government too much, that we're not now going to be spending on that. So the other issue is that disabled people who are still in employment are feeling very vulnerable, because if you're still wanting to shield and your employer is telling you that you should be going to work, it makes it extremely difficult. So we have huge problems. You have huge problems. The people in power don't seem to be listening to the people on the ground and thinking about things about being equitable. If things are accessible, if we fight and challenge ableism, we actually make a better world, because if we have a ramp, we can all use it. If we have stairs, only some of us can use it. And I think that sort of wide vision of thinking about inclusivity, about looking after each other, which was there at the beginning with lockdown. We had things like clap for carers. That just seems it seems people are just going back to wanting to just be back to normal. And
could I ask you, to put your email address in the chat?
I did put it in before, but I will do it again.
Yeah, I didn't see it because there's so much in the chat.
Okay, I will do it again, and I'm sorry I've taken up so long.
Oh, no.
The conversation, but as I said, I could just talk for hours about how much I hate what's going on at the moment.
Which is why there's a whole thread going on in the chat about how DisArt should interview you for our podcast.
Right, I'm gonna put my email in.
Yeah, so I will contact.
I think my thing's set for privately for Elaine. I think that's probably what the thing is. So I'll do everyone, and I will shut up and let someone else speak. But just to say, the thing we worry about in the UK is what your president is doing today. Our government will do to us tomorrow. So you know, we need to support you because it's rampant everywhere.
Yeah.
And I wish, seriously, I wish you the best of luck with it. I really do, because it's heartbreaking for us watching this side of the pond, and God knows what it's like to live it.
Yeah.
You know, I've got some friends who are in Boston and Philly, and I know how difficult it is for you. And I wish you luck with it. I'll shut up. I'll type my thing in the text, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Part of being part of this community is that people take the time to listen when people speak. And we appreciate all that you have to say, Tina. And it does reiterate why when we work internationally, and we try to connect internationally because the disabled experience, the lived experience is so similar. There's nuances and, you know, here and there, but we're in it together. And just as an aside, one of our other board members is Ruth Gould, or Ruth Fabi now. She was the director of Dada Fest for a very long time. And now she's in Wales trying to shake some things up there. So we do have international connections through our board. And she was actually someone who first got us going as well. So, and I think Crip Camp has made it across the pond as well. And Ruth, actually from Wales, she's director of another organization. She had to speak about the kind of what Crip Camp, how it was being received in the US, and how we talked about how important it is in marking a moment in time when people are become aware of a history that's been not talked about. And kept in the shadows. So Crip Camp has made it into a lot of homes across the world as well. So that's really exciting.
Carolyn Bry.
So I think we could probably wrap it up now, if that's okay. We're always, Chris, although he's not here, like I said at the beginning, he's really here always with me. You know, when we work as a team, and so we would welcome you to contact us to connect in any way. Tina for sure will reach out for an interview, and we encourage all of you to send in a submission to the My Dearest Friends Project, and we'll figure out if we have a mailbox or not. But we think that the personal letter writing could be really impactful for people. So thank you, Susan, so much for inviting us to be part of this.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you part of us.
We're excited to be here.
And it will be on YouTube. Takes us a few days to get it up, but it will be on YouTube.
Thank you. And I'm hoping, Jill, it's okay if I share your Facebook page with some of my deaf and hard of hearing groups.
Oh, share away. That's all we want to do. It takes all of us to make the difference. And you know, I always think about it, if some people hear something once, they kind of gloss over it. But if they start hearing it all the time from all different places, well, then they might start paying attention. So it's going to take all of us to make a difference.
I think I heard it 7 times.
7 times, yeah.
7 times. Well, see, there you go. You know the that's what we're hoping for. So keep
all
saying.
Right. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Right.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.